Welcome into Blue Sky Live here on this Wednesday, January the 28th. It's a solo edition of Blue Sky Live. I attempted to persuade someone to be a co-host with me today, a guest co-host. She declined. So I am on my own. Chase Parham will hopefully be with us tomorrow. He's dealing with he got his power back probably about 8-10 hours after I got mine back yesterday, after we got ours back, I should say. It wasn't just my power here in the house. He's dealing with the plumbing issue this morning, probably one of many people around town dealing with plumbing issues. So he's a little tied up with that. Hoping he can be back to work to some degree later this afternoon. But we're anybody who has lived anywhere really probably in North Mississippi, anywhere around Oxford, it's going to be a minute before we're back to normal. I mean, it's wild. We got just hammered by a historic ice storm. Most of you know that by now. Our power came back yesterday morning around 7:15. Some of the people in our neighborhood were starting to get power back late on Monday. Big shout out to Northeast Power. I'll be honest, when it happened on Saturday night, when I got up on Sunday and went across the street to help my neighbor Tony, who was cutting trees down that had landed on top of a water main sort of thing, some of us out in the neighborhood were doing what Southerners do, and that's help one another in crises, even when we don't really know each other. That happened. That's always happened my whole life. It's a Southern. I think it's a Southern thing. I think it's one of the cool, underrated parts of being a Southerner is that even when we don't know each other, we just sort of rally around each other in crisis, always. And then when the crisis ends, we kind of go back to being strangers. But that's what we do. So he was out there, and we were kind of talking, some of us, amidst the chainsaw and all that stuff. And I thought, someone said, when do you think power will be back? I said, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. If you had told me on Sunday morning that you'll have power back on Tuesday morning, I would have been elated. I would not have believed you. So big shout out to all of the people, Northeast Power, the people who came up to help Northeast Power. I know the city of Oxford, other power companies or TVA, they're all working around the clock to restore power to people. Those people are absolutely heroes. They do dangerous work in the last few days, pretty frigid conditions. I mean, it's gotten, I think it was 12 degrees, 13 degrees outside yesterday when we woke up. Those people are absolute heroes. Just phenomenal. Big thanks. Don't know that I can thank them enough. This is Blue Sky Live. It's also going to be a mailbag edition of the show. I asked for questions at rebels247.com. You guys delivered. It's edition 349 of the mailbag presented by Art Hayes of Sotheby's International Realty. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that in a minute. First, this is Blue Sky Live. Don't forget, if you need to fill up, you need gas for your car, for your generator, for chainsaws, highly recommend Blue Sky. You can also stop in. They've got plate lunches. They have ribs. I know a lot of places, restaurants and such, aren't back up and running. Places in Oxford still very much without power. Blue Sky all over Mississippi, including the one here in Oxford, up and running and ready to service you. So make sure that you stop at a Blue Sky if you're out and about. Today, I'm coming to you from the Clark Ford Studios. It's been a minute since I've done a podcast. I'm having to get back into the podcast groove. Clark Ford is in Amory, Mississippi. 662-257-1900 is the number. Call it. Ask for Corey Clark. Tell Corey what Ford product you're looking for. He will send you a quote within 15 minutes in business hours. Right to the bottom line. There's no hassle. There's no haggle. You get your quote. And then the rest is completely up to you. You can take that quote. You can shop it around, of course. That's your prerogative. Or you can do what I recommend that you do, what I've done multiple times, what I would do again in a heartbeat, and that is hop into a Clark Ford today. Had I not moved my truck on Saturday night, I might be shopping for a new Clark Ford right now. But I did move the truck, and so all the trees didn't fall on the truck. So the truck has been good. Your boy even used the truck to pull limbs off the roof. So been busy with the Clark Ford. You can be too. 662-257-1900. Our guest joined on the Campbell Clinic hotline. From fractures and sports injuries to complex spine and limb conditions, the pediatric orthopedic physicians at Campbell Clinic in Oxford are the only specialized pediatric orthopedic team in North Mississippi, providing expert care for growing bodies. Visit campbellclinicoxford.com to schedule an appointment or call 901-759-3111. Yeah, I agree with only one ham here. Shout out to TVA, Energy, all the co-ops from around the state, around the region. I know people came from Louisiana, from Alabama, getting power back up as soon as they could. Incredible. I'm still sort of stunned that we got power back as fast as we did. This is episode, or edition, I should say, 349 of the Mailbag, which is presented by Art Hayes, Sotheby's International Realty. Are you thinking of making a move? Put the power of Sotheby's to work for you. As a licensed agent with Sotheby's and a supporter of all things Ole Miss, Art can help you buy or sell in your hometown or anywhere in the world at no charge to you. Seriously. So call and ask Art how. 612-805-5929 or email Art at Arthur, that's ARTHUR, .Hayes, HAYS, at lakesmn.com. Appreciate Art for being cool with me doing a podcast version of the show instead of the written form. I'll put this up. I'll make a content item of it at some point today. Put it on the site as well. I think Chase is hoping to put his Around the Horn content item up at some point later today, assuming that everything with his plumbing situation works out. So anyway, away we go. Hello, Tyler. Thanks for being in the stream. Feel free to answer any questions that I'm unable to answer. There's a lot of Clemson questions here in a minute. We'll get to them. I don't know that people are going to love my opinion, because my opinion is just kind of like, whatever. This too shall pass kind of thing. I understand a lot of the vitriol. I just don't think this story goes anywhere. I think Dabo's just kind of frustrated. I think he's throwing a little bit of a hissy fit. I think some of it is with dramatic intent to make his people think that he's fighting for them, which is what he's paid to do. I don't think anything will come of it. There's a question at the very end. I'll answer it now. Did Luke Farrelly sign a rev share agreement with Clemson? I don't know. If he did, Ole Miss will pay the buyout attached to it. I mean, it's just not. Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong. I just don't know that this is going to be. Yeah, I need to get some matches for this. I don't know that this is just going to be. I don't think this is going to be a big story. We'll get to it in a minute. But did he sign a rev share agreement? I don't know. We were told that he had not. There's a report out of Clemson that he did. I don't know the reporter in question. I can't say that report is accurate or is inaccurate. I don't know. If he did, it doesn't change anything. Ole Miss would pay whatever buyout was attached to that rev share agreement. It's really that simple. It doesn't make it sinister. It doesn't make it more tampering. We're in an era when everyone tampers. Everyone. I mean, look, Luke Farrelly wasn't sitting in class in Berkeley, California, and just had a voila moment of, you know what, I want to go to Clemson. Clear across the country. Just that's my dream, is suddenly to be a Clemson Tiger. That's not how that worked. Someone tampered with Luke Farrelly. And I don't say that in an accusatory fashion. It's one of the things that got me in trouble a couple of weeks ago when people were so upset at Lane Kiffin for tampering with the Ole Miss roster. I was like, hey, that's what Lane does. Lane tampers. Everyone tampers. Everyone tampers. It's the sport right now. And Dabo is old school, and he longs, I think, for a different time, a different era, one in which he dominated. I understand that. That's human. It's not coming back. And they got burned. They thought they had a deal for a starting linebacker, had him on campus. He was in meetings. They thought they had him, and then they didn't. And they're pissed. And if the roles were reversed, Ole Miss would be pissed. It's the deal. Tampering 301, 101, 201. I mean, everybody's tampering. I mean, I understand what he's saying when he says, hey, there's different levels of tampering, but tampering's tampering. If you're tampering, you're tampering. And the NCAA, as Tyler Siskey said last week, I don't remember exactly how Tyler said it, but he's right. The NCAA is kind of put in a lose-lose situation. If they go after Ole Miss, two things. One, they look like it's selective enforcement, and they open up a complete can of worms that they don't have the time, resources, or energy for. Or they have, and this is the part where I think they'll reluctantly side. They have to sort of admit the quiet part out loud. They have to say, hey, there really are no rules. There's not much rule structure, which gets into the whole, that's where Tyler, I feel like I need to light my match. Unless, and I don't know the answer to this, I don't know how you do it, I don't know how close we are to this, I don't know. Unless you can come up with some sort of structure, essentially a labor agreement. I always laugh at people saying they don't like professional sports, but they like college sports, and college sports, especially at this level, have become professional sports. You are seeing what professional sports would look like without structure. It would be chaotic. But right now, at least, it works. TV ratings are off the charts. Interest is off the charts. College football has become a clear number 2 in American sports media consumption. NFL is king, sitting on its throne all by itself, scepter in hand. And then after that, it's college football. A clear number 2. Not even a close, not even any competition for number 2. So it works. Is there a need for structure? Of course. Structure would solve a lot of this. Whether it's how you go about that, I don't know. All right, that's for someone a lot smarter than me. I do think you could fix some things with some calendar moves. I do think you could shift the calendar and fix some stuff and make it a little more settled. But right now, this is the calendar. Fans love it. Players love it. Players have perpetual leverage. And anybody who's ever been in a negotiating situation, when you have leverage, you love it. If you know how to effectively use that leverage. Now, some people think they have leverage when they don't have it, and they try to use it and they get burned. And that happens to a lot of college football players. But guys like Luke Fairley have a ton of leverage, and he used it. He was still, at least in his opinion, technically in the portal because according to him, he had not signed a rev share agreement. But there were guys at Ole Miss, Devin Harper, Principal Aman Mielen, who had signed rev share agreements, who still got in the portal, left to go to another program, and that program will pay Ole Miss the rev share buyout. And that penalty will come off, in this case, the LSU rev share. LSU's had a lot of backdated back money that they didn't spend a year ago, and they're clearly borrowing from next year's rev share under the assumption that or under the maybe hope, I guess. Maybe it's an assumption. I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody there to fill me in on this, but they obviously believe that the rules will change and that at the very least the rev share amount will go up, and they're basically borrowing from an amount of money that will be available to them soon. Clemson didn't have that view. Ole Miss decided it needed Luke Fairley, got him. All right, we'll get into am I saying it wrong, Doors? I don't know. However you say it. I've not talked to Luke. One of these days I'll talk to him and I'll say, hey, how do I pronounce your name? You know the point. Crew Jones Reb says, how far can you punt a football today? Probably about 15 yards, maybe. I'm old, man. I don't know that I could punt a football very far. MR02536 says, Neal, for those of us outside of Oxford, do you know of a local entity or organization that we can donate to help whomever is in need there? The one that comes to mind is the Pantry, which is over there by the old police station off Molly Bar. They keep food together for those in need in the community, and there are going to be people in the community, I would think, who are already in pretty desperate need. Not everybody was probably as prepared as they could be or should be, and some people just don't have the resources to be prepared for a storm of the magnitude of the one that has hit us. So I would recommend them. And then I would assume just your regular, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but like the Red Cross and Salvation Army and those types of charitable organizations. All right, Illinois Reb, and maybe we just covered this. I'll let you guys decide. He says, I know you covered this a bit in 10 Thoughts, but the whole Dabo thing just isn't sitting right with me. I'm not saying that Ole Miss didn't tamper. Good, because they did. But don't you think it would benefit everyone if the NCAA or someone came out and said, hey, he didn't have a rev share deal signed, and right now that's the only thing we have that's binding. But even that's not binding. That's the point. All that's binding with the rev share is it puts a buyout attached to a school who then gets the player out of the portal. At the end of the day, he asked to go back into the portal. They begrudgingly allowed him to go into the portal, and he signed a new deal with Ole Miss that voided the deal with Clemson, except for, if there was a deal with Clemson, except for whatever buyout may or may not have been attached to that hypothetical deal. I don't know how we can talk about that and then not admit this is pro sports. I think there's a lot of people out there, especially in the national media, who still don't quite understand just how lawless it is. I'll talk about that in a second, which makes Ole Miss look like the bad guy. We've really done a 180 from the Cinderella CFP team that everyone loved. Yeah, I mean, if perception matters to you, I guess in some corners you've lost Cinderella's slipper and you now just look like one of the big bad powers trying to buy up the players. If that bothers you, I'm not sure I know what to tell you. Yeah, with grind. Yeah, I've learned with pronunciations. You just look. My name is McCready, and everyone calls me McCready, and I just answer to it. I'll ask him at some point, "Hey, how do you pronounce your last name?" And we'll go from there. All right. Here's my answer to this part about the national media. There's a subset of national media that continue to sort of romanticize college football because they always have. And while it's tempting for me to make fun of that, I kind of get it. Because you get the people that say, man, I don't watch the NFL. It's whatever. I love college football because it's not that, even though it kind of has become that, certainly at the Power 4 level. And so if you are someone whose entire living is based on covering that sport and you want to keep that constituency engaged, you continue with the romance. And let's face it, it's emotional to people. So kind of steering into that Makes sense. And then there are some in the national media because they spend the majority of their time covering the top stories in the sport. And then they go to the playoff games and they go to stuff like that. That's what they see. They're sort of always covering everything from 30,000 feet. I don't know that they ever spend any time, and this is not a criticism. It would absolutely be what I would do if I were a national reporter. You don't ever really get enough time dedicated to one program to really understand exactly what's going on in the sport. You just sort of see, you cover the big game on Saturday, you travel on Sunday, on Monday you look at things like rankings and you start previewing the next game's weeks and you tell stories about the starting quarterback at Texas or Notre Dame or whatnot. And then next thing you know, you're covering Oregon, Penn State on that Saturday. Rinse, repeat. You never really get a lot of time covering the minutia of a sport. So, I mean, I get what you're saying about the national narrative as it pertains to Ole Miss. I'll say this, and I said this at the beginning, this is going to blow over. This is not going to maintain a lot of oxygen in the news cycle because it's going to move to something else. Clemson will move to something else. Something else will happen. Here, the attention will shift back to the Trinidad Chambliss case. It'll start to shift to other things, to spring, and then before you know it, we'll be into the summer, and we'll be talking about the same things that we always talk about. We'll be doing way too early win-loss projections, way too early Heisman race stories, those kind of things. The focus will shift. And unless Ole Miss somehow plays Clemson in a bowl game or a playoff game, this story it'll run out of oxygen. The flame will go out. We're brought to you by Comer Heating and Air, Southern Air Conditioning and Heating, different names, same great people, products, and services. I talked to Eric just yesterday. He still doesn't have power, and yet I promise you they're out and about trying to help people. If you're in Oxford, Batesville, Tupelo, those areas, and you've got heating, in this case, heating needs, give the people at Comer a call, 662-801-1777. If you live in Hernando, Memphis, South Haven, those areas, call the people at Southern, 662-429-4429. Oxford locals, Ole Miss families, if you need dry cleaning or laundry done right, Lapel's Dry Cleaning has you covered. Proudly serving the Oxford community since 2016, Lapel's takes care of everything from suits and formal dresses to comforters and everyday laundry. Even better, they offer free pickup and delivery to make life easier. Just call 662-638-3149 to be added to their pickup and delivery route, or visit them at 3010 Old Taylor Road, right across from the Mark condominiums. Mention Rebels 24/7 or MPW Digital for 50% off your first order. Trust Lapels to keep you looking your best. We're also brought to you by ENT Physicians of North Mississippi. As the largest private ENT practice in the state, their goal is simple: delivering fast, expert, comprehensive care for patients of all ages with ENT, allergy, sinus, dizziness, balance, and voice-related needs. With same-day or next-day appointments with ENT urgent care for that annoying cough or sore throat, in-office CT scans, and same-day allergy testing, and access to their comprehensive audiology team offering a full range of services from hearing aids and custom hearing protection to potential surgical options. ENT Physicians of North Mississippi are committed to removing barriers to care. They now have new locations in New Albany and Starkville, in addition to Tupelo, Corinth, and more. Get more details at entnorthmississippi.com or call 662-844-6513. We're brought to you by Arnett's Fine Jewelry. It's a fourth-generation jeweler located in the old Lamons building on North Lamar Avenue in Oxford. They've got everything you want: jewelry repair, diamond engagement rings, wedding bands, stackable diamonds, much, much more. Great for gifts. Valentine's Day, a little over 2 weeks away. You got birthdays, graduations, anniversaries. They've got flexible bangles, diamond pendants, earrings, and much, much more. They want to be your jeweler at Arnett's. And we're brought to you by the College Corner. They've got, I guess it's kind of hard to get out and about right now, but you're shopping maybe for Valentine's Day, maybe birthdays for the Ole Miss fan in your life, go to collegecornerstore.com. They've got all the name brands that you know and love, all the colors, hoodies, T-shirts, jackets, more, hats, caps, Nike, Horn Legend, Champion, Antigua, just to name a few. They got the location in Oxford, just off of Sisk and the Oxford Commons, 2 locations in the Jackson area, the Ridgeland store by Fleet Feet, the Flowwood location by the Half Shell, and again, collegecornerstore.com. Tyler Reb says, yeah, that's right. Tyler Reb says this has probably been answered already, so I'm sorry if it's repetitive. Had Keith Carter not hired Pete Golding as head coach, where do you think they would have pivoted? I don't know. I think they went into that weekend not really expecting Texas to beat Texas A&M. I think they thought they would have been able to hold Lane Kiffin's feet to the fire a little sooner. Then Texas won that game, and Ole Miss had to start thinking about the SEC championship game because had Auburn beaten Alabama at Jordan-Hare, and they almost did, had Auburn won that game, Ole Miss would have played Georgia in the SEC title game, and I think Ole Miss had reluctantly reached the conclusion that you would need to let Lane coach that game. And so when that didn't happen, that bought Kiffin 24 more hours. It made his power play more effective. And you know the rest. I think going into that week, Ole Miss was very interested in John Summerall. I think Ole Miss was very interested in Alex Golesh. Neither of those two people could afford, given the rumor mill, could afford to turn down Florida and or Auburn to wait for Ole Miss in a world where there was at least a possibility, I guess, that Lane Kiffin would have a last-minute change of heart. I think knowing what we know now, we know that was not possible. But in that moment, kind of, as I always say, the fog of war, on at least one of these people, I can say this with absolute authority, that was just not a risk they could take. Jobs like Florida and Auburn carry life-changing generational wealth. You can't turn those jobs down on a wing and a prayer. You can't say, well, you know what, I'm going to say no to Florida. I'm going to say no to Auburn, and I'm going to wait on Ole Miss. And then if Ole Miss opens, I'll get it. And that's the job I want. When your advisors are saying to you, well, what if it doesn't open? What if you turn these jobs down, that job closes, and you're, for lack of a better word, stuck where you are, making 25% of what you could make at one of those places. And in an environment where maintaining players at a G5 school is very difficult. So where would Ole Miss have turned? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. Never had that conversation. It worked out incredibly well, I think. I don't know where they would have pivoted. I don't know whether they would have gotten into that next tier of coaches that were out there, whether there was someone else out there, whether they would have opened it back up, whether they would have made a last-ditch play for Golesh. I don't know. Richard 63 says, Neal, Ole Miss men's basketball question. Who would you include on your team, starters and reserves, beginning with the Bob Weltlich era, players and head coach, Ole Miss all-time all-star team? Thanks, Richard. All right, I can't do Weltlich because I just don't know. I can go back to the Ed Murphy era, so late 80s. My coach would be Chris Beard. He's the best coach I've ever covered in any sport. It's not even close. Current results notwithstanding. He's the best coach I've ever covered. He's elite. He would be my head coach. My starting lineup, I think, would be Chris Warren at the point. Probably go Marshall Henderson at the 2. Gerald Glass at the 3. Sebastian Saiz, way underrated player, would be on the floor. Who am I missing? Might even go Murphy Holloway at the 4. Reginald Buckner would be on that team. Sean Padula would be on that team. Nick Williams would be on that team. Joe Harvell would be on that team. I'd have to really think about how I'd put a roster together, like what I would try to do if I were, because you'd want a 3-and-D guy, maybe Zach Graham. I jump in the stream here and see who I'm missing. Oh, Ansu Cisse would absolutely be on that team. Keith Carter might be on that team. I'd have Mike White on that team. I forget that era because I didn't cover those teams. I remember them because I was covering the SEC or I was covering Auburn, but I didn't cover those teams on a day-to-day, so I forget them. My first year on the beat was 2008. When I came in March, Ole Miss was in the midst of an NIT run that ended in New York. So my first full season covering Ole Miss was the 2008-09 season with AK. So I don't remember all those guys. I'd have to give that some real thought. Romello White would probably absolutely be on the team. That's a good one, Trent. Yes, Stephen Moody. Yeah, I don't remember the Abernathy. That was before my time when he was a player. I just don't remember it. Justin Reed played in the league. Yes, you have to give this real thought. And I don't, in my mind, I immediately think of the guys I've covered. Terrence Davis for sure. Devontae Shuler was a hell of a player. Tarico White, yep. You could put together a really good team. It's wild, honestly, when you go through all those names that Ole Miss has as little NBA presence historically as it does. Probably not Terrence Henry. I don't think he'd make my 12-man team. I might attack this at a later date. I need to talk to some people, though, because I'd make a further fool of myself. Let's see. Chat Wolf, next year, assuming that Chambliss clears his hurdles, Ole Miss will very likely have 2 very real Heisman contenders. A lot can happen before the voting takes place. For I distinctly remember Archie on the cover of Sports Illustrated and every other magazine. And then, unfortunately, he broke his arm halfway through the 1970 season. With all that said, do you expect the national media to pick up on this in the manner they did with Arch in 2025? I haven't given next year's Heisman race any thought. I would think, assuming Chambliss is back at quarterback for Ole Miss, which is what I absolutely assume. From at least an SEC perspective, there's going to be a lot of attention on Trinidad and also Arch Manning, who finished the season really, really well at Texas and has a big name and a big story, and they should be a loaded team. Ole Miss plays in Austin next fall. Yeah, look, I think Ole Miss will open the season in the top 10, probably somewhere close to the top 5, if not in the top 5. Trinidad will be a big reason for that. He's got a fascinating story based on his background at Ferris State, now the NCAA appeal and or the court case. So there will be a lot of attention on that. There'll be a lot of attention on Arch Manning for obvious reasons, including the fact that he's really, really good. And then, nationally, I don't really know. I don't really know yet who the other storylines are. I admire the people that do it, that flip the page to the 2026 season almost immediately. I've not gone there. I have not given that real thought yet, if I'm being completely honest. But look, I think Trinidad's going to get a lot of attention. I had Kejuan Lacey third on my ballot this year. So he'll be one of the people that I'll be most talking about going into the 2026 season, although running backs don't seem to win the award anymore. It seems to be a quarterback award. So if you told me that one of the Ole Miss guys got to New York, I would tell you it was probably Trinidad. He'll get lots of attention. Ole Miss is going to get lots of preseason respect. And there's going to be some – Ole Miss is going to be one of the headliners at Media Days in Tampa this year. Ole Miss will be a headliner. Texas will be a headliner. LSU with Lane Kiffin and all of that will be a big headliner. In many ways, those three programs and probably Georgia, just because of their decade now of just dominance, those are kind of the headliners. More than Alabama, more than Auburn, more than Florida, more than Texas A&M even. Those will be the ones that I anticipate them sort of spreading out to get the headlines. Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU. At first blush, those would be the schools that I would think they'd section out Monday through Thursday to maximize the attention. In terms of respect and attention, Ole Miss is going to get it. It's gotten it. Reindeer says, take off your OKC Thunder fan glasses. You're now the Memphis Grizzlies general manager. How do you handle the Ja Morant situation? Do you trade him or keep him or try to make it work? Since the start of 23-24 through today, Morant has played just 79 games. For those who don't know, an NBA season is 82 games. Missing 61.8% of games during that span. The talent's undeniable. Durability has never been his strength. His issues this season stem from frustration with the front office for not offering him a max extension last offseason, instead asking him to prove he could stay available. Through his first 6 seasons, the Grizzlies have won just one playoff series, which is well below most people's expectations. Still, for a small market like Memphis, letting go of a player of his caliber is difficult because the Grizz are never going to attract a superstar in free agency. Generally agree with a lot of that. I would probably keep him through this season and shop him in the offseason. I would try to get draft choices for him that I could rebuild through the draft. I think for a small market like Memphis, like Oklahoma City, like San Antonio, your path to being a title contender is the draft. It's eval, ping pong ball luck, draft, and development. I don't think you're going to win a title with Ja Morant. I don't think you're going to make the Western Conference Finals with Ja Morant. And so I would trade him while he has value, because for him to play at his best level, he has to be reckless. And when he's reckless, he gets hurt. If he plays conservatively, he's not that good of a player anymore. He's not a superstar. I would probably build around Coward. I would build around the draft. I would get some draft choices. The problem you have is that while that makes basketball sense, I don't know that it makes front office business sense. And your lease, and we'll have Jeffrey Wright's on tomorrow. Is tomorrow Thursday? Yeah. Maybe we'll have a moment and ask about this, because Memphis has a lease issue where someone could move that team. And so you need to maximize the attractiveness of the current team to keep locals engaged. And there's a lot there, a lot of moving pieces. But from a basketball-only sense, replacing him is going to be difficult because he's very, very good. But if you look at the West landscape with OKC and Denver and Houston and Minnesota, some of the other teams, you're not catching them. You're just not catching them. You're not beating those teams in a 7-game series. And so you have to, I think, start thinking of moving on. Daddy Ball says, Neal, I've seen some draft analysts saying Trinidad is the 4th best quarterback. Have you heard anything about him testing the waters or potentially going all in on the draft? I have not. Everything I've heard with him is 5th round grade, which would pay him nothing resembling the $5 million that he would get to play at Ole Miss next season. And he'd give another season for him at that level to further develop as a quarterback, to answer any questions that the NFL might have, and to perhaps move up and increase his stock. But no, I've not heard anything about about that at all. One thing I have heard about is Coors Banquet beer. It's been brewed in the same tradition of the original 150-year-old recipe. Banquet is crafted with 100% Rocky Mountain water, so when you're enjoying a banquet, you are drinking history. We're also brought to you by Argent Wealth. Argent, based in Ridgeland, Mississippi. They've got clients in more than 20 states. They provide detailed, specialized investment management, financial planning, retirement planning for individuals and businesses, and much, much more. At Argent, investing is treated like a commodity. Decisions are made using objective information and research, not emotions. So regardless of your level of wealth, Argent will sit down with you, listen to your goals, study your expenses, and put forth a comprehensive, detailed financial and retirement plan built just for you. It's myargentwealth.com. We're brought to you by John Edwards, Regency Travel Incorporated in Memphis. John's part of Virtuoso. It's a worldwide network of travel partners that allows him to supply his clients with added values, unique benefits simply not available to other travelers. Get in touch with John if you're trying to make a special trip, one that creates a lifetime of unique memories. Give him some parameters, give him a budget, and sit back. He'll give you some options that you probably can't or won't find on your own. And no, you don't have to live in or near Memphis to take advantage of the services. 901-494-3387, or send him an email at jedwards@regencytravel.net. First-time clients can save $50 off their first booked trip just by telling John you heard about Regency Travel on the podcast. Get the beautiful, healthy smile you deserve at Corinth Dental. Dr. Bubba McQueen, Dr. Jenny Beth Hendrick are devoted to restoring and enhancing the natural beauty of your smile using conservative, state-of-the-art procedures that will result in a beautiful, long-lasting smile. From routine checkups to advanced treatment, including implants and Invisalign, Corinth Dental is here to help you achieve your smile goals. Schedule your appointment today. Take the first step toward a better version of yourself. It's corinthdental.com. Let's see. Vibes Rebel says, it's a life advice thing. If we were doing McCready and Siskey, this would be life advice. Tyler, if you're still in the stream, remember this one. We'll talk about it on Thursday. He says, I've been toying with the move for about a year now. I've been in my current area on and off my entire adult life. I work remote. I love it here. It's super walkable. I can walk to the gym, the bars, the restaurants, basically only use my car for Sam's Club runs. All of my friends are here. Good dating, nightlife, so no complaints. To top all the good things I have to say about my community, my landlord, she's a sweet woman, and I have a 2-bedroom with a deck and a den I've turned into a movie room. The den itself is bigger than my previous apartments. She's never going up on my rent, and I'm paying what most people pay for a studio for this. I want to try something new while I'm still flexible, but I'm a bit concerned getting out of what's already a really nice life for something that's unknown outside of some vacations to the couple areas I'm looking at. Thoughts? I guess I have two completely conflicting thoughts. One is don't mess with happy. And two is you, at least to my knowledge, only live once. And if you have this desire to try something new, do it. That's what I would advise. If you're going to look back years from now and regret not trying something new, do it. Just understand that there might be some growing pains and that there's a world where that's the wrong decision, at which point you've got to pick yourself up and try again. But that's without knowing more specifics about how old you are and what it is you're wanting to do. And it's kind of hard to say that. It's super easy to get comfortable and complacent in your life and your career. And then you look up and you kind of wished you'd done something different. And yet at the same time, if you're happy and you're around people that you enjoy, be aware of the fact that there's going to be some growing pains when you leave. You're single, I presume. You're young, I presume. That's when you should probably take more risk. It's the whole ladder analogy. Where are you standing on the ladder? If you're real high on the ladder, you need to take fewer risks. If you're very low on the ladder, you can afford to you can afford to take a risk. BBB40 says, how are you? I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking. Coach Remus31 says, with Dabo acting holier than thou with his comments about tampering, do you think this speeds up any kind of actual oversight from a governing body? Here in Tennessee, they opened up one free transfer for high school kids. Good God. It has created the wild, wild west. You think? The state association claims they're going to investigate recruiting accusations, but no one will turn anyone else in for fear of their school getting caught. Is that going to be the same with tampering? Yeah, pretty much. Look, there's ways to fix it. The problem is, so far, anytime that the NCAA goes against the court wins. The NCAA loses in court. So you can try to go to back to the one transfer rule, and someone's going to challenge it, and precedent says that someone will win, at which point the rule goes out the window. The Charles Bediako case at Alabama is going on right now. The guy played professional basketball in the G League. He might get voted onto the G League All-Star team, and yet he's at Alabama. Precedent says the courts will win. So do I think the NCAA is going to do much about what Dabo says? No. Look, do I think the NCAA might launch some cursory investigation to give Ole Miss some sort of a public? Sure. But I wrote this in 10 Thoughts. What the hell are they going to do? Take some visits away? Okay. Take some eval days away from the staff? Okay. So you can't go look at 2028, 2029 kids for 2 weeks in April when you otherwise would have? Okay. In a previous era, that hurt. Now, nobody cares. You can get that kid back by offering him a little more money. Or you can not sign him initially out of high school and then offer him a year later and get him out of the portal. I don't really know what the NCAA can do that's punitive. I guess they could give Pete Golding a 2-game suspension. Ole Miss would appeal it, fight it down to 1 game, and he wouldn't coach against Charlotte. I mean, I guess that would suck for Pete that day, but in terms of teeth, there's no teeth. The NCAA's been neutered. They're just a little puppy. They can gnaw at you, I guess, but there's not much they can do to you. They're not going to hurt you. And everyone knows it. So, no. I don't think much is coming of it. Rusty Shackelford says, will you become a prepper after experiencing the ice storm? Laura and I were talking about that this morning. No, I don't think. We were prepared. We had plenty of water. We had plenty of food. We arranged coolers. We looked at the forecast. We sort of knew we gassed up our cars. We had a plan for how to keep our devices charged. It worked. We had a plan for how to keep food from spoiling. It worked. First of all, you could put your food outside on our back patio up on this cabinet that we have. And it was 12 degrees outside. You had a natural freezer you could use. We had a gas range. We knew we'd have that. We had plenty of clothes and blankets, and so we were prepared. I don't really know what else we could be prepared. We're going to get a question in a minute about a generator. I almost bought a generator. I wrote about this in 10 Thoughts. I wrote about this in 10 Thoughts just a little while ago, or yesterday, I should say. By the way, 10 Thoughts are brought to you by Andrew Seago Wealth Management. They're up at Rebels 24/7. Ole Miss had a great portal season, and you can too. Do you have an old IRA or 401k with a former employer? Is that money stuck with a bad team and not living up to its full potential? Put that account in the transfer portal and let a fellow Rebel professionally manage it for you. Andrew Seago Wealth Management will build a playoff caliber portfolio just for you. Book a quick discovery call today at rebelsretire.com or 901-482-2678. Maybe you need a tax saving strategy or retirement income planning. That's what they do every day. So give them a call at 901-482-2676 or book a discovery call online at rebelsretire.com. We were prepared. I mean, I almost bought a generator. I was in Rogers doing a car swap with, I was in Northwest Arkansas. I'd done the car swap with my son. I was at, sitting down with my daughters in Rogers, and Laura, my wife, texted me about a generator because you couldn't buy one in Oxford at that point. They were all gone off the shelves. And we looked at I think it was Home Depot. Maybe it was a Lowe's. I don't remember. Home Depot, I think, in Rogers. And there were generators available. The one that was available there was like a $1,200 generator. And I was like, do I really want to spend that on a generator? In hindsight, had we had a generator, I guess we could have absolutely run a refrigerator off of it. We could have run a couple of space heaters maybe and warmed up our house. Our house got cold during the day. It got cold, real cold at night. But we didn't have children here. There are no babies we had to worry about. I guess if I think about like one of those full home generators. I mean, maybe. I guess if you we got power back within 60 hours. I think less than that. Yeah, we got cold a couple of nights, but we had clothes, we had blankets, we were warm. We didn't. There was never a time where I was worried about our safety. So I don't know that I would do much more prep than I did this time. And honestly, I don't know how much prep you really could do for a storm of this magnitude. The amount of ice was just overwhelming. The sounds Saturday night, Sunday morning of the trees snapping is something I'll probably never forget. I'd never heard that before. I'd never heard thunder in the midst of an ice storm. There was lightning. I kept thinking those were flashlights, and it was lightning. That was a historic storm. I don't know how much more prepared anyone really could have been. And I mean, if you had, in a world where it was just a disaster, you'd have to have a generator, and then you'd have to have a lot of gas, fuel stored up that you could use for that generator because it would eventually run out. So all in all, I kind of feel like we were prepared. Ole Miss 902 says, Neal asked the question, do you think this year's portal cycle will be as wild as it was last year back in the last week of December? Is it safe to say that this cycle has been just madness? I don't know. I mean, I guess. I think there's some recency bias included in that whenever we go, oh, this one was the craziest one ever. It's pretty crazy. I mean, it's what you get when you have sort of a ruleless, lawless structure that allows players to go to the highest bidder up until the last minute. That's going to bring chaos. But again, chaos has a negative connotation, and I'm not sure that it should. I think this is celebrated chaos. This is reality TV for men. I mean, everybody likes this stuff. That's why they're hung on it. I mean, it's why the networks that we work for push us to be on around the clock during the month of January. Don't stop, because it generates so much page views and hits and links and stuff. Clicks, I should say. Kyle says, is this the worst natural disaster you've ever been in? Have you learned any survival skills? Yeah, I think so. Probably. We were living in Spanish Fort, Alabama when Hurricane Ivan came through, and it did a lot of damage to our area, the Eastern Shore. Obviously, we were there a year later when Katrina went through. It didn't impact Alabama, obviously, anywhere close to the way it impacted the Mississippi coast or New Orleans, but we were close enough in proximity that you felt like you were experiencing it to some degree. This is bad. Laura and I got out yesterday afternoon for just a little while. We didn't get far at all from where we live. We live in the north part of the city. I've seen the pictures. I guess I saw, is it Callie Prieskorn's video that she put out yesterday? I think that's gone sort of viral. I've seen some of Reed Timmer's videos now. We didn't really have enough cell reception to watch videos until yesterday. So yesterday was the first day that you got a chance to really look at it, and it's bad. I mean, I knew it would be bad given the damage that we saw in just our neighborhood. I knew it would be bad in places where you had older, more established trees. You knew those trees weren't going to fare well. I mean, the damage on the Ole Miss campus looks pretty significant. The damage around Oxford looks borderline catastrophic. It looks like my daughter Campbell saw the pictures and she said it looks like a tornado went through, and I called it an ice tornado. It's what it looks like, kind of all around. I think it's going to be a long time before we're back to normal and things look the same. I don't know what the plan is for schools next week. I'd kind of be a little surprised, honestly, if Ole Miss is back in school next week, just because of the liability of kids having to cross the campus on foot, which means that you have to go through the Grove or you have to go through the Circle to get from one side of the campus to another, to get to your residence halls, to get to your parking spot. A lot of those trees are damaged. I think you'd have to be concerned about falling limbs and things like that. So I'm sure they're working around the clock on the campus right now. I don't, but it's one of those things where until you see it, you don't really know just the extent of the damage. I've heard people describe it as catastrophic. So yeah, it's pretty rough. Cardboard Cutout says, how much over MSRP would you have paid for that generator this week? I don't know that I would have. Honestly, do I regret not buying a generator? Maybe. Would I have paid much more? Probably not. Knowing what I know now, that's the benefit of hindsight. That's, hey, we have power on Tuesday. If I'd thought, hey, we won't have power till Saturday or Sunday or into next week, would I have paid over MSRP for that generator? Yep, probably so. Because look, the temperatures today are supposed to get up into the 40s, so you would start having a food ice issue with keeping your food fresh if you didn't have refrigeration. The 2 days that we didn't have power, the temperatures never got above 32. So we had a built-in freezer outside called Mother Nature. We didn't have to worry about food going rotten. So we were good. We had plenty of water to drink. We had plenty of food. We had the ability to stay warm with we have a gas fireplace. It didn't really put out much heat, but maybe a little bit. It would warm the house from the 40s into the 50s, which was noticeable difference. Jack Central Reb says, what happened to the quarterback from Oklahoma State who transferred in this past year? No one seems to mention him. I couldn't tell you his name. I don't know. I don't know if he's still here or not. Someone came for just a little while and left, but I can't remember who that was. Double Lunch says, what are the rumors of Lane Kiffin being involved with the Dabo transfer whining situation? I'm assuming he either fed some information or corroborated something. Chase made the post that he had heard something similar from multiple different unconnected people. So I believe it would then be safe to sources if multiple people were all saying it. I'm not sure exactly what you're saying there. I apologize. I don't know. I can't sit here and tell you that Lane Kiffin was or was not involved in it. I think it's safe to say that Lane and Dabo had communication. I think Dabo communicated with a lot of people. I think Lane communicates with a lot of coaches. Look, I said this the other day. Lane's doing at LSU what he did at Ole Miss. Simple as that. That's his style. It's what he's going to do. And I don't think Pete Golding runs a meek program. So there's going to be some clashes, and Lane, his job at LSU is to assemble the best roster possible, and he very predictably tried to raid the Ole Miss roster. That everyone saw that coming. All in all, I thought Ole Miss managed that really, really well. You know, Lane was your son of a bitch for 6 years, and now he's theirs. It's kind of that. And September 19th is going to be pretty rough. It's going to be pretty vitriolic. Lane's the coach at LSU now. His job is to win big at LSU, and to win big at LSU, he has to go through Ole Miss. Pete Golding's job is to win big at Ole Miss, and to do that, he has to go through LSU. The fact in a world where Lane was involved in feeding ammunition to Dabo, I'm not surprised, but I have no proof of that. So I hate to make that accusation when I don't know it to be true. In a Puckett 14 says, random, I know, but I'm tired of talking about the normal football stuff, and basketball has been a bit underachieving, but here goes. You and Chase have busy personal lives, and so I get you do not always stay in touch with each other on some developments. However, do you guys ever intentionally withhold discussing news topics with each other so that you can bring it up on the podcast and get a genuine reaction from the other? I don't think he does. I can't speak for him. I don't know. I would be surprised at that. So no, not really. Probably something we ought to think about doing sometimes just to make it a little more organic, but no, to my knowledge, that's not the case. LSU sucks, says Neal. Do you root for Ole Miss? Asking because I'm sure it's killing you that you haven't been able to mention that in the past few weeks. Or have you finally decided to STFU? I'll leave that to you people to figure out what that means. About it, sorry, that was 2 questions. Listen, I've addressed this. I addressed it last week, I thought, pretty thoroughly. To be honest, to the point where I feel like I've addressed it sufficiently. You're free to disagree with that, and that's okay. It's your prerogative if you disagree with that. If you want to continue to hold that against me, it's absolutely your prerogative, and you can. Let's see. Blake Mac 15 says, "What's your favorite conspiracy theory and why?" It's probably the JFK stuff. I still listen to JFK assassination podcast. I read a lot about it. I go back and forth sometimes. Sometimes someone will literally talk me into Oswald acted alone and pulled it off. And then I usually come back to my senses and realize that it was probably a CIA affiliated, if not sponsored hit, which literally makes it the crime of the century, because you know that wouldn't be the first time, nor would it be the last time that something like that could happen. When you think about the reality of the leader of the free world was killed at 12:30 on a sunny day in one of America's biggest cities, and the killers have still not been completely identified beyond a shadow of a doubt, is wild. But he loves Ole Miss, says, but what is your grade on Elias Camerodine? It's a C. Maybe a little lower than a C. He's not been consistent. He can't get downhill. I watched a good bit of Arkansas, Oklahoma yesterday because Darius Acuff Jr. is just phenomenal to watch. And then I watched a good bit of Kentucky, Vanderbilt. And those 4 teams all have guards who can just get past Elias. He's a creative offensive player. I don't know that his style of play is the kind that you can just insert into a lineup and go, here, make it work. I think it takes some time. It takes some chemistry. It takes guys to start understanding how he plays. And in today's college basketball, you don't get that much time. I think he tries really hard. I think he competes hard. I think he wants to win. and there's still time. They're not getting blown out. They're not getting embarrassed. They're just sort of losing the same game. I wrote about this in 10 Thoughts yesterday. They're just sort of losing the same game over and over, which is probably more maddening than just getting your ass kicked, where you just go, hey, we're just not good enough. Like they were in the game in Norman. They were in the game against Arkansas at home. They were in the game at Rupp the other day. They were in the games in California when I was out there for the Utah game, the Iowa game. They were in those games. They were in the game against St. John's in New York. They lost all of those games sort of the same way. Give up a really ill-timed offensive rebound that leads to a second chance, that leads to more points, that takes a possession away from you. Just bad shot selection, ill-advised long-range twos that don't make sense, fadeaway jumpers that take the onus away from the official. You're not going to get calls when you're taking fadeaway jump shots from 18 feet. Just not. They're not going to call that. You're going to get calls when you drive to the basket and you force air into the official's whistle. Against Kentucky, Ole Miss just didn't go to the free throw line much at all compared to Kentucky, and at no point did I think, man, Kentucky's getting a favorable whistle. I just thought Kentucky's taking better shots. And you still had a chance to win the game with 2 minutes left. You still had a chance to win the game with 1 minute left. But you gave up 2 terrible offensive rebounds that led to 4 extra points for Kentucky and took 2 possessions away from you. Brutal. If John Garrison leaves, is there a world where Ole Miss could possibly bring back Matt Luke to coach the offensive line? Well, given that Garrison just signed an extension, I would say no. And I would think that's probably not something that Matt would want to do. He coached at Georgia for a while. He took a little time off. He's coaching at Clemson now. Everything I've heard is that he's pretty happy there personally. His kids are, I think the kids are still in Athens. Been there for a while now. That's probably home. So I'd be a little surprised. I'd be a lot surprised. But, I mean, I guess it's possible. We covered this with Patrick. He says about the Clemson PR folks saying that Farrelly signed a rev share contract on January 7th. We've heard he did not. What's the truth? I don't know. And again, I don't think it matters. If he signed one and there's a buyout attached to it, Ole Miss will have to pay the buyout off of its rev share. And if they know that happened, they already know it. I mean, I assume at some point we'll have my guess is it will be sometime. My guess is it would have been next week had it not been for the ice storm. I don't know whether that will change things, like some sort of a press gathering with Pete Golding to talk about Ole Miss's transfer portal recruiting additions and subtractions. I assume that opportunity will come soon. My guess is it would have come sometime next week, and it may still, but I don't know whether the ice storm and all that stuff has changed that. But these will be questions that we'll ask, and we'll get Pete's answers and go from there. Salad Thunder says, how do you properly layer up for teens degrees? Same approach to children. I'm not sure what that means. I just think you layer, and if you put something on your head, because if you have something good on your feet and something good on your head, you're going to maintain most of your body heat. And then in the really cold weather, when your hands get really cold, you start to feel it, so wear gloves. Doors Rules says, how bad does it get if LSU goes 9-3 next year and misses the playoffs? Bad. They're paying Lane Kiffin $13 million to win national championships. That's what they're doing. They're paying him $13 million and giving him a ton of resources to win championships right now. Ben says moisture wick base, wool, windproof outer. That's probably right. I just layered. I don't know. I don't hate the cold, and so it doesn't really bother me. I was layered. I was warm. I got out in the cold and worked Sunday for hours, and it just didn't bother me. If you're active and moving around, you kind of stay warm. I got more cold sitting in the house than I did outside in the actual cold. Yeah, I can't stand my hands to get cold while running either. Drives me crazy. Hey, don't forget Northeast Power and Spark. They're advertisers with us. They're corporate partners with us at MPW Digital. They've done phenomenal work in this storm. We talked about Northeast Power at the very beginning. I mean, phenomenal what they've done. Spark back online and going, given the situation, just remarkable. Big thanks to them. If you're in the need for their services, they do phenomenal stuff. Chicory Market has eggs and milk back in stock today. The registers will be run by generator if power hasn't been restored. So hopefully they get power back here soon. But if you need eggs, if you need milk, and you can get there safely, they've got you taken care of. Yesterday, I think Chase was saying, bring your own flashlight. I don't know whether that was a joke or not. I don't think it was. You might want to take something to help you see a little bit. Hopefully those folks get their power back quickly. Horn Legend has quarter zips, jackets for men and women. They've got multiple things, great material, jackets, vests, button-downs, polos. Mention MPW Digital in the drop-down when you order. Their college football playoff gear looks really good, too, if you want to keep some of that as a souvenir from Ole Miss's run through the Sugar Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. Let's see. The power is back on, he says, for most of New Albany, so stop in at New Albany Pharmacy and Solutions. They have household items available. It's at 140 Fairfield Drive in New Albany. And does your home and auto insurance keep going up? With the folks at The Firm, a proud Liberty Mutual and Safeco insurance agency partner. Take a look. Founded by Ole Miss alum Brian Hayden, The Firm services the entire Southeastern Conference. Let their team of licensed professionals review your insurance needs and put together coverages that protect you and your family without breaking the bank. Schedule a consultation by calling 662-236-1101 or by emailing staff@thefirmsouth.com. Again, staff@thefirmsouth.com. Let me make sure I haven't missed anything. I may not have hit the refresh button properly. I'm worried that I missed a couple of questions, and I'm going to get – I did miss a couple. My bad. See, I'm glad I went back. I did miss a few. I apologize. My bad. I caught myself. Lafayette Reb 67 says, is Pete Golding an old school type of coach? He's always got a pin near his ear, and the way he talks just sounds like one. I don't know. He's a football coach. I mean, I think he's a player's coach. I think guys like playing for him. And he's a really good communicator with kids, with their families. I think he's business. So I think he's old school in that regard. Look at the people he's worked for. I mean, he worked for Nick Saban for a long time. Those people are typically pretty organized, old school football coaches. But I don't really know what that means. I'm not saying it was in a derogatory way. I mean, he's adjusted with the times. I just think he's a really good football coach. We'll see what kind of overall administrator he is. The early returns are incredible, but we'll see what a full offseason looks like for him. What does a summer look like for him? What does a full season, what does a preseason camp look like with him in charge? What does a full season look like? We don't know those things. I think he was always very intentional, and I thought he did the right thing by saying he was finishing the 2025 season. They weren't going to make sweeping changes in December from a team that had been together and had achieved what that team had achieved. So we'll start to see whatever sweeping changes, if there are any, over the next several months. So it's a little early to completely judge, but so far seems to be just a really good football coach. Centerpoint Reb says, I've seen post elsewhere that the NCAA is going to investigate Ole Miss concerning Dabo's tampering rant. Yeah, we've kind of covered that. I don't think you should be concerned. I mean, I'm sure they'll look into it and they'll file some report, say they did their job, as they should. But look, they don't want to get into the tampering business. I'm not one to defend the NCAA, but I'm going to defend them here. I mean, I don't blame them for going, hey, there's no way we can do this. We don't have the manpower, the resources, the energy, and frankly, the ability to really punish anyone. The only real punishment would be taking away rev share money. And I don't think they can do that. Erner asked, did that one poster ever send you $1,000? No, he did not. Deuce01 says, have you watched the series 11/22/63? It just got released on Netflix. I watched it over the past few days. Really liked it. I know you talk about the JFK assassination, so I was curious what you thought. I think Laura and I watched that series when it first came out. I want to say it was on Apple TV. I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was Hulu. The series was fine. I'm not a Stephen King fan at all, and I thought that book by Stephen King may have been the best fiction book I've ever read. I thought it was phenomenal. So anything was going to pale in comparison to the book. I loved the book to the point of I'm thinking of reading the book again just to catch things that I didn't catch the first time. I thought it was absolute literary genius. So, and I'm not a Stephen King fan much at all. I'm not a big horror person, and I disagree with him on a lot of social, political things. And I will give him credit. I think that was maybe the best work of fiction I've ever read. RB Sharp 98 says, when fans, message boarders insult you or say things that are clearly to get a rise, does it affect your opinion of a fan base, or are you able to see it as an unfortunate minority? I guess I understand that's the consequences of having some type of platform, but I've never understood the psychological aspect of trying to separate the loudest negatives from the rest of the positives. It's hard to do. My observation from what happened with me a few weeks ago is that you have to be, when you do what we do, I think you have to be really aware of how tired you are. And when I say tired, I don't mean just lacking sleep. I mean kind of just being tired of something. This is not an excuse for what happened that night. It was inexcusable. I made a terrible mistake. I regret it. I'm very sorry for it. I learned something from it, though, and I have already started carrying that forward, and I will continue to carry that forward. And that is starting with the Sunday of Ole Miss's game against Washington State. We were on. Meaning there was, whether it was football, basketball, all of the Lane Kiffin stuff that got started on October the 18th, at least in our worlds. In my world, it was going full speed the night of the Ole Miss Georgia game in Athens. Through Kiffin departing for LSU, to Ole Miss hiring Pete Golding, to the playoff run, to the start of the basketball season, one where I traveled to California, to New York, to Biloxi, to the Sugar Bowl, to my, I guess it was 12 days away from home where I was working the entire time, coming home and immediately jumping into the portal stuff, just nonstop. The portal was nonstop. There are, and this is not a criticism at all. It is just a acknowledgement of what that environment is journalistically. It is nonstop portal. There's a section of the fan base that is insatiable during the portal, and they, I think, expect you to be on at all times, and that drains you. And then I think that makes you more susceptible, as you mentioned, to the people that come at you. What bothered me that night was not an NBA team losing a game. What bothered me that night, I think, what made me snap, and that's what happened, was someone just coming at me on it. I should have just let it be. I acknowledge that. It's my fault. Totally. I own it. But yeah, every fan base has an asshole factor. Ole Miss is included. And those people go for you. I've learned. So people ask me, what have you learned from this? And what I've learned from it is, even if it means getting beat, you have to turn it off. Like, it's something I'm planning to do a lot more moving forward than I've done in the past. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to put my phone away at 7 o'clock on a night in the fall. And if Ole Miss gets 2 commitments that night, I'll write about it the next morning. Not going to stop what I'm doing, go upstairs and work on a story, because that drains you. It puts you back on. I think that you have to be able to turn off. And I didn't do a good job this fall of turning off. I didn't do a good job of taking care of myself physically and probably looking back mentally. And it led to a really bad mistake. And I own it. No excuses. If that comes across like an excuse, I do not mean it as one. It's totally on me. I don't blame anyone else. But I learned a lot from it. Rusty asked, who gave your parents the most trouble? Me, Ryan, or Tim? Tim. The youngest kid always causes the most trouble because the youngest kid has fewer rules. I grew up in a pretty strict house. Ryan, who's 3 years younger than me, was a little less strict. Tim's 5 years younger than me. It was a lot less strict. I think parents are just that way. It's not a criticism of my parents. Campbell probably had a stricter house than Carson did. Who do I think the top 5 contributors at receiver next year will be? Gill. The other kid from Jonte Cook. Deuce Alexander. Frankly, if Luke Haas is healthy, which has been a problem for him both at Arkansas and at Ole Miss, so that's certainly something that's worth noting. But when healthy, I think he's a very effective receiver as a tight end. Caleb Odom, I think, has a world of potential. And then there's some of the other guys. I know people inside the building are really high on Dylan Alfred, on Caleb Cunningham. So, they have a lot of options. And by the way, this wasn't asked, but I hope people are cool to Caden Lee when he comes back with Missouri next season. In this environment, he got more money and an opportunity at probably more secure playing time and an opportunity to play with a really good friend in Austin Simmons. They're really tight. And Caden's been nothing but a pro's pro in his time at Ole Miss. He played hurt 2 years ago, the year that ended in the Gator Bowl. He barely could walk some weeks, and he played really hard for you guys. It didn't work out, but it wasn't from a lack of effort. And I remember talking to him at the Gator Bowl about his just excitement about getting healthy. And this season, look, Kiffin plays favorites a little bit, and Winnie Watkins was a Kiffin favorite. It cost Caden some playing time that I thought Caden deserved to have, and he was a trooper the whole way. So an aside, and I know most people view it as, hey, you're either with us or against us with players, and I understand that. I do hope Caden isn't met with the same vitriol that others will be met with on September 19th. I would hope people could look at those two things differently. He gave Ole Miss everything he had the whole time he was here. and he's one of the guys that I really like as a human being, and I hope that's respected. What percent, K-Stud, what percentage of your subscribers do you think you alienated for good with your recent antics? I have no idea. No clue. I am at a point where I'm kind of done talking about it, though. Like, this might be the last time that I address it in any shape, form, or fashion. Probably should just leave it at that. I think some of the reaction's been a little over the top. Some of it was deserved. Here's the thing. I can't control how you feel about me, how anyone feels about me. It's out of my control. And the happiest people on earth, I've learned over the years, are the people who don't worry about the things they can't control. I have a lot of stuff going on in my life coming up that's really positive. I'm not going to talk about it here publicly. I'm leaving that personal stuff to myself, but I am planning to enjoy those things and probably more than I would have in the past. Like I said, I learned that I'm going to have to turn off more than I've done in the past. And that means getting beat on some stories. We just get beat on some stories. It'll be okay. Or it won't. And if it's not, at some point, I'll pay that price. And if that means ultimately having to go to a different place and doing something new, then that's what I'll do. I mean, at some point, I've got to focus on just doing my job to the best of my ability. And that's what I'm going to do. And I'll let the chips fall where they may. I've apologized. I've apologized profusely. I've apologized genuinely. And if that's enough, great. And if it's not, that's okay too. Last couple here. Bearish 85. When will we hear anything from Pete regarding the portal? So sometime next week would have been my guess. Maybe it's another week given the status on campus, which I'm unaware of at this moment, like what's going on with students. And, obviously Ole Miss is closed through Sunday. I don't know whether they'll actually reopen on Monday or what that all means, but I would think we'll hear from him sometime soon. And then I think we covered these others. Attorney Reb says, talking about LSU schedule, possible losses to Clemson, Ole Miss, A&M, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee. What happens if Lane goes 8-4, Ole Miss goes 10-2, and makes the playoffs again? I mean, he would be remarkably uncomfortable in that scenario. I mean, obviously, again, this is Power 5, Power 4 football. You're paying people to win and win now. You're paying people to focus on team more than program, and you're paying people to win now. The attention span's shorter than it's probably ever been. There's less emphasis on development than there is on team. It's much more of an NFL model today than it's ever been. Meaning, are there people on an NFL roster who are there for development? A little, not much. Pretty much you make the roster if you can play. If you can help that franchise win now, you play. If you can't, maybe a few guys get put on a taxi squad, a practice squad for development purposes, but for the most part, they send you elsewhere to develop. And I think that applies at LSU today. It applies at Ole Miss today. At the other programs you just mentioned, Texas A&M, Alabama, Texas, Tennessee. Dabo's probably figuring that out at Clemson today. So, I know I didn't answer a lot of the stuff in the stream. I apologize. There was some Kevin Durant stuff. I didn't know what that was. I apologize. I will say this about KD. He seems to be really happy in Houston. He's playing well on a good team. The West looks vulnerable. The Thunder are just beat up to hell and back. The Nuggets have some injuries. The Spurs have some young guys that look to be hitting sort of the rookie wall a little bit right now. I mean, the Rockets are one of those teams that probably has a chance to win the West. KD looks happy, and I think maybe I could learn something from Kevin Durant. I think Kevin Durant has, over the course of his career, learned to not give a damn what everybody else thinks. To go out, play as hard as he can, play as often as he can, and let the chips fall where they may. People talk about legacy. I don't think he cares. I think he used to care. I think he used to care a lot. And I don't think he cares anymore. And with that burden off of him, he seems happier. So there you go. All right. Hope everybody stays warm. If you don't have power, hopefully you're getting it back soon. If you do have power and you're getting out and about, be careful. Roads were kind of slick yesterday. It got really cold around here last night, so they're probably pretty slick still today, although the high today I think is 41, 42, which hopefully will melt some of this away as we all continue to sort of bounce back from a storm that we'll remember for the rest of our lives, as is crazy. We will have a Josh Hendrickson show this afternoon here at MPW Digital, usually around 3:30. I think we'll tape with Jeffrey in the morning, so we'll have a BlueSky Live in podcast form to you tomorrow. I think McCready and Siskey is tomorrow afternoon. I think our plan is to be normal on Thursday. I haven't talked to Martin Palomo, but if he's available, we'll tape a Mind on My Money tomorrow as we start to sort of slowly get back to normal here at MPW Digital at Rebels 24/7. I've got 10 thoughts up from yesterday. I think Chase is planning to put some content up today as well. Obviously, the portal has slowed down dramatically, so there's not the daily portal stuff right now because the portal's closed. But we'll have content to you, updates to you as we get them on Trinidad Chambliss, on anything else that we're following on a day-to-day on the site. I won't promise a hand raise, guys, tomorrow because I don't know what roads look like tomorrow. We'll take that just kind of a few hours at a time. But appreciate all of you guys being with us today in the stream for a pretty long show. A lot of people with us. Thank you. Hope everyone stays safe and healthy out there, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.